It's Friday, November 21st. Let's talk PlayStation. I'd like to kick things off with perhaps the most interesting news story of the week, which is PlayStation 3 Firmware 4.66 software stability. It's about time we finally got some PS3 software stability. Thought they might have forgot that platform for a second. I mean, yeah, PS4 stability updates are nice, but I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm losing sleep about PS3. Where's my stability? Finally, we have it. So this week of Let's Talk PlayStation is basically going to be interview week because there were tons of interviews, and you know, when interviews happen, when Sony does interviews, they often say some pretty interesting things, and it's noteworthy and newsworthy. So Shawn Leighton, for example, is in a bunch of interviews, but let's kick it off with this first interview. So first up, Sony Computer Entertainment Australia's managing director, Michael Ephraim, said regarding firmware updates, we all know whenever we download firmware updates for PS3, Vita, PS4, sometimes we're a little nervous because there's a lot of bugs. Sometimes they'll completely brick systems or crash systems. There was that rest mode bug with PS4 2.0 recently. Sometimes it'll mess games up. This happens a lot actually with PlayStation, and Sony kind of has their back against the wall in this recent interview where Michael Ephraim said, "Listen, we're really apologetic dealing with network and digital. I'm not trying to spread or deflect anything, but dealing on such a robust network is a tricky experience. The good thing is we've launched 2.01, which has fixed the rest mode bug and has fixed the YouTube app." He further elaborated by saying, you know, we're not bulletproof. These things are definitely going to happen. Like I said, this is him against the wall, them trying to cover their asses, because this does happen a lot with Sony. But moving on to our next interview, which is probably going to irritate some people, because we just had that news story, last week about how Sony's trying to broaden their approach and turn PS4 into a multimedia, you know, mass market machine, because now that they've kind of done really well with that gamer-centric push forward, they want to try and broaden their horizons a little bit. And this next interview kind of highlights that. Sony's Fergal Gara, who's the UK managing director for Sony, elaborated on this week, saying, "I'd like to continue with the innovation stream I just talked about with SharePlay, PlayStation TV, PlayStation Now, Project Morpheus, but also what we want to see in the next year or two is a bigger mass market play." So like I mentioned, it's clear many facets and outlets of Sony are definitely looking at this approach. There was some sort of big board meeting obviously saying, listen, we need to start taking PS4 in a bigger, broader direction to sell more of these things. And now we move on to Sony Computer Entertainment America President and CEO Shawn Leighton. We all know he just took over that role earlier this year from Jack Tretton. He said a bunch of things this past week. Now, let's get into a classic here, Parappa the Rapper, and the possibilities of it coming back. He recently touched on this, saying, "Of course, now everyone wants me to bring out Parappa the Rapper, which we are looking at, but that's a more complex rights package. It's us trying to be more open at SCEA. If someone comes to me about something that they would like to have back on the platform, and it's in my power to make it happen, I mean, why wouldn't we?" And that's him kind of saying, you know, he's in a very big position. He is the Sony Computer Entertainment President and CEO of America, so yeah, of course he can make it happen. Of course he could greenlight those projects. It's just a matter of if they're going to. But like you mentioned, Parappa is a musical rights sort of thing. I would assume it's very complicated, but it's nice to hear that they're looking at it, right? And that's what I always tell people whenever they think about certain projects or ideas or games that they want to happen. Trust me, your favorite developer or hardware maker has definitely looked at tons of options, thousands of options you probably yourself haven't even thought of. You know, they got research and development. They're always looking at ways to make money, always looking at ways to release new products and bring back old IPs or something, or whatever, right? You know, these conversations definitely take place. The sad reality is business allows only so many of those things to go forward and be brought to light, and yeah, this may or may not be one of them. Moving on to our next Shawn Leighton quote. Shawn was recently noted as saying the PlayStation Vita, in his personal opinion, is the best handheld you can get. Now, clearly he's biased here, so of course he's going to say that. Like clearly he's going to say that. But he is noting that the PlayStation Vita is picking up in sales, which is always good to hear. But here's a direct quote. "I believe the Vita is the best handheld gaming experience. Full stop, period. Nothing comes close to that. You can talk about your mobile, you can talk about your tablet, you can talk about, you know, Nintendo platforms or what have you in the handheld space. I think pound for pound, buck for buck, Vita is the best gaming experience you can have." Yeah, he's clearly going to say that. But it is good to hear that, you know, you're seeing more Vita sales. It's not. I always tell people Vita is never going to be a multi-million selling console or handheld. It's never going to do gangbusters. You know, where's all the AAA stuff? I told you guys, like, Sony invested tons of money in making AAA games. No one's buying them. They've funded third-party developers to make AAA games on the system. No one's buying them. They're not making enough money. It's not a self-sustaining business model. And I do agree, they need to do way more marketing for Vita. They still need to work on memory card prices. But I think they've done a good amount of support for the Vita itself, which I don't think a lot of people give Sony credit for. They've made tons of AAA games for the Vita themselves. That's their funded money. It's hard to make money off those Vita games when the platform itself creates console quality games on the go, but that's also console quality budget in terms of actually creating those games. It requires a lot of people, a lot of manpower, a lot of paid wages, a lot of resources, and when you don't sell nearly as many copies as a console game should, you're not going to see a bunch of console quality games on the Vita. They need to sell more of the actual hardware first, which, you know, I've said it a few times, it's a very niche product. Vita has a very hardcore fan base, and that's what it works for it. I mean, that's where the Vita is right now, and that's a self-sustaining business. There's all the indies on it and everything. That is what keeps the Vita flowing. And that is what keeps it. That's what keeps the machine alive. Which people like to call it dead. It's not dead. It's still on the shelves. It's still being sold. Developers still make games for it. Games are still getting sold on it. Developers are making money on it. Just because it's not what you wanted it to be doesn't mean it's not dead. Moving forward with our final news story, the PlayStation 4 is selling at an extremely good rate, at the point to where it's pretty much outpacing PlayStation 2. So what I mean by that is, if you look at the sales from PlayStation 2 to its first year in the market, and PlayStation 4 on its first year in the market, the PlayStation 4 is selling at a faster rate, and it's even rivaling the Wii's sell rate. And we all know the Wii did extremely well, sold very, very well. Granted, lifetime sales of the Wii did not beat the PlayStation 2's lifetime sales, but Wii had a very accelerated amount of sales the first few years of its life cycle. So, but case in point, PlayStation 4 is doing very well, and that's what we're being told right now. You can see the numbers right there for yourself. It is selling at that rate, so it is selling extremely well. I think the more interesting piece to this is that the Xbox One, Sony's closest competitor, is doing very well. And by the way, when I mention the Xbox One is the closest competitor, a lot of people like to say, hold on a second, Ryan, the Wii U has sold more than the X1. How is the X1 a closer competitor to Sony? And that's very true. The Wii U is closer in sales. But you got to keep in mind, a lot of these hardware makers, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, they make most of their money, well, specifically Sony and Microsoft make most of their money through software. So when you look at X1 and PS4, for example, a lot of third-party games are on both those systems. You don't see the Wii U receive nearly as many third-party games as PS4 and X1. So when Sony wants to beat Microsoft, they want to beat Microsoft because they want more systems out there. That means more software sales for PS4. Like Call of Duty Advanced Warfare selling more on PS4. That's more money for Sony. That's how that works. Whereas Advanced Warfare is not on the Wii U. It's not a competitor. So you see what I'm saying? Anyway, X1 is doing extremely well right now. It's outselling PS4 the past few weeks in North America, and I believe also the UK. And X1 just recently crossed 1 million systems sold in the UK, which Sony did in September. So they're not far off. Sony, Microsoft is finally doing a little bit of catch-up. And I've mentioned this before, you know, they're definitely not out for the count, especially since they've been doing so much to finally catch up. You know, the system launched at $500. They took out Kinect for a $400 box. They started adding games to the $400 box. That still wasn't working, so they dropped it by $50 for this holiday season. And then now they're putting games with a $350 box. I mean, they're doing everything they can, and it is working for them because they also have compelling software this holiday season, like the Master Chief Collection, Sunset Overdrive. Now, granted, Sony's doing great sales too. A lot of retailers are doing $350 PS4s with The Last of Us and GTA 5, but you are seeing the X1 finally do better in sales, and who knows if that's going to actually eclipse PS4 at some point, definitely not soon. I think people are underestimating that, is that PS4 still has a pretty damn healthy lead, like a really healthy lead right now, so it would take Microsoft a while to catch up, but it's definitely possible. Like, they could do it. The really good thing to take away from this is the console market is still very healthy. I mean, selling at just as fast of a rate as PlayStation 2 and Wii. Those two systems sold over 100 million systems worldwide. That is the peak of console sales, you know. PS2 is the highest selling console ever at 150 million units. So when you've got the same sort of pace, that definitely tells you right there this market is still healthy for what it is. And seeing the X1 finally do better, I mean, I feel awesome about that. That's great that the X1's finally selling better, because I want the console market to be healthy, because I enjoy consoles. I've always been pretty open about that. I prefer consoles over like PC, and that's always what it comes down to is, you know, you see the YouTube comments, a bunch of PC Master Race people, PC this, PC that, consoles are dead, console peasants, you know, it's whatever. But I always prefer consoles. It's clear that millions of people do, so I like to see that the industry is still doing well. Anyway, that concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. Those are just some of the news stories I want to talk about with you guys this week. If you have not seen it already, this week's episode of Ryan on Gaming is up. What happened to cheat codes? They're kind of gone now. They're not nearly as relevant as they used to be. What happened? If you want to check out that pretty cool, awesome, sweet discussion, check out that video. And yes, Little Big Planet 3 did come out this past week. Interesting review scores, I know. Some people are actually giving it pretty low review scores. I think I've been pretty vocal about this. I'm totally going to review it. I love Little Big Planet, so I'll definitely give you guys my take on that. No clue when the review will be up. Probably in 2 weeks. I mean, it is big games, got a lot of content, but I'm getting settled in. So far, I'm enjoying it a lot. So I'm not necessarily seeing the super low review scores. People are saying there's lots of bugs in it. I got to get more into it, but you will see a review from me soon on Little Big Planet 3. Anyway, that's about it. I'm Ryan Benecki. Thank you so much for talking with me, and I'll see you guys all next Friday.